Coming up, the Alaska Native Heritage Center has a new brochure paving the way for cultural tourism. We learn about it. Plus, we're visiting with an Indigenous costume designer working in New York City. And we have the sights and scenes from the Navajo Nation presidential inauguration. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Arizona State University welcomes 3,500 Indigenous students from Arizona and across the nation. It serves one of the largest populations of Indigenous students among U.S. colleges and universities. We created a sense of place for tribal nations to create futures of their own making through community outreach and research, taught by world-class Indigenous faculty where they see a reflection of themselves and their experiences. Find community at ASU.
Amadawahopa, thank you for joining us. Tribes in Arizona met on Wednesday with state lawmakers at the 28th Annual Indian Nations and Tribes Legislative Day. And for the first time in more than 12 years, voters there elected a Democrat, Katie Hobbs, to lead the state. This event is a chance for tribal leaders to discuss issues with the new legislators. And this year, the lack of water was at the top of the list.
My name is Jason Chavez. I'm a member of the Allen-Charmley Nation from the San Miguel community in the Jucugut district. I am the Director of Tribal Affairs for Governor Katie Hobbs. This date is set in statute to take place the first week of the legislative session, and so we've invited representatives from tribes and nations all throughout Arizona to come here to the Capitol and give a few remarks, meet with their elected representatives. We have over 600 registered attendees and over 60 exhibitors, and so it's exciting to see Indian country come together today at the Capitol and share with one another their ideas and solutions moving forward. A big issue, as you know, that affects all Arizonans, but particularly affects tribal communities, is water. Arizona, we don't have much water in our state, and it's a precious resource that our communities rely on. And so that's a lot about what we're hearing from communities having to do with water. So the most important part of today is just being here and being together. Indian Nations and Tribes Legislative Day is a day for folks from tribal communities to come to the state capitol and meet with their legislatures. It's a day to celebrate who we are, our communities, and to engage with elected officials about the needs of our communities and how we can work together to solve the challenges.
In Washington state, there is a proposal for new legislation that could solve cases of missing and murdered Indigenous people. Two bills, one in the state House and one in the state Senate, would create a cold case investigations unit if successfully passed into law. The state's MMIWP task force unanimously recommended this unit's creation after investigating the topic since 2021. Earlier this month, Washington State Attorney General Bob Ferguson partnered with state legislators to propose the legislation. Tlingit lawmaker and MMIP advocate Deborah Lekanoff is one of the bill's sponsors. She says this unit would ensure there are resources available to investigate cases where Indigenous people don't know what happened to their loved ones. The bills will now be heard before various committees before the Washington State Legislature adjourns its 105-day session. The Seneca Nation in New York is celebrating the return of ancestral land within its territory. The nation announced that it has completed the purchase of 1.8 acres of land in the town of Caledonia. The parcel is within the boundaries of the Canawagas Reservation. This purchase marks the nation's first step in an effort to return to the Genesee Valley region. Seneca Nation President Ricky Armstrong Sr. says he is thrilled to reacquire a portion of the land that was taken from their ancestors. The nation's territory was allegedly sold to the Ogden Land Company in a later treaty in 1826. However, that treaty was never ratified by the United States Senate, meaning the reservation was never lawfully disestablished. Armstrong says the nation is looking forward to working with its neighbors throughout the area. Staying in New York, Governor Kathy Hochul has vetoed a bill that would protect unmarked graves. According to reporting from Native News Online, the bill was titled the Protection of Unmarked Graves Act. It would have protected unmarked graves by halting construction on private property if human remains were found. The veto now means a Native American Burial Site Review Committee won't be created, and that tribes will not be allowed to seek injunctions against violators. Navajo Nation Chief Harry Wallace is one of the leaders who spent decades trying to pass this legislation. Wallace said he was hopeful it would pass Hochul's desk since it was the first time that it passed the state legislature. Hochul said she vetoed the bill in late December because it didn't balance the rights of property owners. New York is currently one of 4 states that does not have a process for remains that are unearthed on private property. Well, we end our headlines today in outer space. That's where astronaut Nicole Mann will be living for just a few short months longer. NASA says she is set to return to Earth in March. While living aboard the International Space Station, Mann has helped conduct different kinds of science experiments, one of which hopes to improve astronauts' access to key nutrients. The project uses yogurt and other yeast-based products to help produce what the astronauts need to survive in space. If the experiment is successful, it will help reduce the amount of weight that is taken up during the launch. Mann is the first Native American woman in space and just the second Native astronaut in space overall. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. As a youngster, Raphael Regan spent time hanging out in the costume shop while his mother went to college to earn her degree in theater. In that space, he found his love for sewing, and it planted the seeds for his career as a freelance costume designer. In the last decade, he's designed and helped create the looks for plays like King Lear and Sovereignty. Raphael joins us virtually with more. Hi there, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year and good morning. Thank you for having me.
So before you started hanging out in that costume design shop, did you have any idea what you wanted to be when you grew up?
A little bit. I knew growing up, I took a lot of art classes in elementary school and middle school, and I knew that I had like a talent for the arts. And I knew growing up that I did not want to be in a cubicle, sitting in an office, working a 9-to-5 job. Staring at a computer all day. So kind of, yeah. It wasn't until, I got involved with, experienced with the costume shop that I was like, oh, this is what I want to do, is to tell stories through costumes.
Tell us the kinds of plays that you've worked on.
I worked on a bunch of plays, mainly modern dramas. And a lot of them also recently have been doing with Native American history, specifically Sovereignty, which was a historical drama about sovereignty with the Native Nation, specifically the Cherokee Nation, and how today we still struggle with, having our own sovereignty and the struggles of our ancestors and how that still is with us today.
Tell us a little bit about what goes into designing a costume. I imagine that it's a lot of work.
Yes, it is a ton of work. But it first starts with a lot of meetings with, the director. If it's a new play, the playwright will be involved. And then it also deals with all the other production design elements. So the set designers, the lighting designers, the sound designers. We all come together and we talk about play, and that's where a lot of our ideas start to spark, and we meet, sometimes it's once a week, sometimes it's twice a week, depending on the project. And from those conversations, we kind of, go our own way, and our own departments start doing their own things. And then we kind of come back together and say, for costumes, this is my idea, this is what I think we should do to help, tell this story, and how does it match and how does it line up with all the other elements of the design. It's very collaborative, and that's just the beginning, and then after those meetings, we go and we do some research and we come back with either sketches or renderings. And we again have another discussion saying, okay, this is more fleshed out ideas. These are the colors I'm thinking. These are the silhouettes I'm thinking. And then from there, it's like you go and you produce and you get all the garments, whether it's you're shopping for all the things that you want. Sometimes you're building some of the items. Sometimes you're renting from, costume rental houses all over the United States, to produce and to make the 2D image that you drew come to life in a 3D way.
Hearing you talk about what goes into costumes, it really sounds like you're doing your part in terms of what the actors are wearing to tell the story. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so it's very collaborative, with, the production team, but also with the actors. The costume designer really has a really tight relationship with the actors. And sometimes a lot of the costume can be driven from just those conversations with particular actors, whether it's getting their sense of style, or, they're oftentimes in the rehearsal room discovering new things. So when we have costume fittings, it's another time for us to kind of put our two heads together and say, well, this is my idea. What are you discovering in rehearsals? And how can we achieve both of our ideas to create, this story and to tell, whatever it is that we need to tell.
We only have about a minute left here, but I want to talk and understand how many other Native people work in this industry as costume designers? And, if it's not a lot, what are you doing to kind of grow more Natives in this field?
I only know one other Native costume designer, and I met him when I moved to New York about 4 years ago. And I was kind of shocked because I was like, oh, I'm going to be the only Native, costume designer. But, it's just, advocating for us and letting people know, like, this is our culture. What we do is storytell. So it's just, getting more people to understand, like, this is part of our culture, and we storytell, and we tell these things, and it's helpful when we do historical things too, because it also brings in a lot of like traditional elements, and speaking and reaching out to the Native youth too. There's productions I have that are touring, that we hope to reach to Native smaller communities, to get that idea and that spark going for them, saying, I could do something in the arts, and I don't have to be an actor, and I don't have to be in front of the cameras. There are things outside of just being an actor to be in the arts. And I think that's kind of what I like to do, and speaking to the Native youths when I do get the opportunity with master classes or, talk backs after certain productions.
Well, Raphael Regan, thank you so much for telling us about your career as a freelance costume designer.
Thank you for having me.
Cultural tourism is a movement that continues to grow rapidly, and now in Alaska, tourists are hoping for a real Alaska experience, and they have a new brochure to guide them. ICT's McKenzie Allen-Charmley spoke with Nikki Graham. She's the Director of Operations for the Alaska Native Heritage Center. Here they talk about a new travel brochure that aims to highlight Alaska Native cultures in an authentic and respectful way.
Welcome, Nikki. Thank you so much for joining us. To start, I was hoping you could touch on your role as Director of Operations and then the role the Alaska Native Heritage Center plays for the state.
Sure. So Waka Winga Aka Nikki Graham. My name is Nikki Graham. My Yupik name is Aga Aska. I am originally from Homer. My grandmother, Mary Johnson, was from St. Michael, and my grandfather, James Graham, was from Leeds, South Dakota. The other side of my family is Dutch. I serve as the Director of Operations here at the Alaska Native Heritage Center. And in my role, I oversee human resources, facilities, social enterprise, all of the cultural programming. And so anything that has to do with the experience of coming through the Alaska Native Heritage Center is in my purview. And so the center itself was born through the Alaska Federation of Natives in the late 1980s. Took us about 10 years to fundraise enough money to build and open the center. And we're the only statewide living cultural center that represents all of the Alaska Native cultural groups. And so we have a museum component, cultural programming, dancing, cultural demonstrations, as well as our traditional village sites here on about 26 acres on the east side of Anchorage.
For our audience members who don't know much about cultural tourism, can you explain exactly what that is?
So I think it's important that when people come here, from the moment they set foot into Alaska, for them to understand that they are on Indigenous land, no matter where they travel into our state, and that there is a culture that is alive and thriving, and it's the only place in the world you can come and get an Indigenous experience for Alaska Native culture. Dancing, regalia, storytelling. This guide was really born out of a subcommittee of the State Tourism Board, which our president and CEO, Emily Edenshaw, sits on. And so it was comprised of representatives from all over the state who really created a brochure, the first of its kind, that really shares with our visitors what it means to be in an Indigenous place and the opportunities that they have to participate and learn about all of the diverse Native cultures across Alaska.
For a lot of Indigenous communities, accurate representation is important. How does this brochure help increase tribal sovereignty?
Tourism in Alaska is a huge economic driver, and with that, some of our small communities, right, they're completely dependent, or in a large part dependent on money that comes from visitors to our state. And so it's important that Indigenous groups really are accurately represented. And a lot of times in our in the history of Indigenous people, things have been done to, for, and at us. A lot of our history was oral. It's passed down generation to generation through storytelling and in an oral way. And so a lot of it isn't written. Most of what people find that's written history is written by non-Native people. So it's important that we are empowered and we're able to tell our own stories, to tell our own history from the Indigenous perspective, not from non-Native people.
And what is the biggest takeaway from the impact of the brochure?
I think that it's just really representation that Indigenous cultures here in Alaska are alive and thriving. Sometimes what is most visible, even to our own home community, is not always reflected in the most positive light. But it's important that people know when they come here, from the minute they come here and they set foot, that you are in Indigenous land, no matter where you go into Alaska. And I think it's important that we tell that story from our own voice, and that we share all of the opportunities and bring light to all of the incredible cultural experiences that are available throughout our entire state. And the brochure really represents that. And so it's the first of its kind. We are really excited to share all of the opportunities people have when they come here to our great state, to engage with the Indigenous community and support them. And also, to bring awareness. It would be great in the longer term for sustainability to have more support from the state to create things like this. And so I feel like this is really just the beginning.
How can other individuals get involved in the center and utilize these resources?
Yeah, thank you. This information is also available online. Our website is www.alaskanative.net. And so when you come to Alaska, please take a look at all of the information that's in this brochure. There's everything from, the importance of storytelling in Alaska Native history, the big festivals and opportunities that are going on throughout the year, introduction to Indigenous language, how to be a good and responsible visitor to these traditional lands. And so check us out online. This information's available online. If you're actually physically here and you come to the Anchorage area, come to the center. We're open year round for self-guided tours, but in the summer we have full programming, and it becomes alive, and our culture is celebrated, and you can feel the energy when you set foot here. And so it's a special place.
The month of January after an election year is filled with swearing-in ceremonies of newly elected leaders. That includes from federal officials to tribal leaders. ICT political correspondent Polly Danette-Claw joins us now to talk more about the events. Welcome back, Polly.
Thank you so much for having me, Aaliyah.
So let's start off with the swearing-in ceremonies of the Indigenous members of Congress.
Yes, so last week, the swearing in of Senator Mark Wayne Mullen happened, as well as the 4 others who are on the House. So that is Josh Burkeen, Mary Peltola, Sharice Davids, and Tom Cole. And so those are the Indigenous members of Congress who got sworn in last week. And we did see on the House side that it was a little bit of took a little bit of time to get to that point, but it was very exciting to watch them all get sworn in and to see them become part of the 118th Congress.
I want to switch gears because you were actually in Fort Defiance, Arizona on Tuesday. What happened there?
Yes, so the Navajo Nation inauguration happened, which was the swearing in of Navajo Nation President Boo Van Nygren and Vice President Rochelle Montoya. Rochelle Montoya is the first woman elected to the office of the president and vice president. She will serve as vice president, and Boo Van Nygren is the youngest ever president of the Navajo Nation, and he got sworn in on Tuesday as well. And also at the Navajo Nation inauguration was the Navajo Nation Council. So the 25th Council got sworn in as well, and this is the highest percentage of Navajo women who have been elected to the council. And it was really exciting to see 9 of the 24 members of the Navajo Nation Council be women and watch them get sworn in. And so that's about 40% of the council now are women. And in the last council, the 24th Navajo Nation Council, there were only 3.
Given all of those history-making moments, what was the atmosphere like? What were you hearing from people who were actually attending the event?
So at the event, it was so lively. It was incredible to see all of the Navajo women in the room who were so excited when Rochelle Montoya first got on stage, and when they talked about how historic it was that she is the vice president of the Navajo Nation. And as well, towards the end of the ceremony, they also recognized the 9 women who were elected to the council and just had their moment. And I feel like this is really an incredible moment for the Navajo Nation. They are, the Navajo Nation is a matrilineal society, but only recently have women really been elected in these high numbers into these positions. And so it's really exciting to see that and to be able to witness it. And folks in the room were just really excited, especially when Boo Van Nygren got out there and did his inauguration speech. And it was really incredible to see the crowd's reaction.
Polly, tell our viewers why it's important for people to pay attention to the inauguration of the Navajo president, even if they aren't Navajo themselves.
So actually, I did meet a leader from the Seneca Nation who came all the way from New York City to the Navajo Nation inauguration. And what he told me is he felt that it was really important and also a historic moment because, one, Boo Van Nygren is the youngest Navajo Nation vice president, and also seeing them elect the first woman as vice president. And so, he came all the way from New York City because he felt that it was really important to be witness to this and to also, gift the Navajo Nation president. He brought a couple gifts with him as well. And it's important to watch this because the Navajo Nation is one of the largest tribes in the country. They do have the Navajo Nation Washington office, which not only advocates for the Navajo Nation, but for also other Indigenous nations, things around tribal sovereignty and issues like that. And so, it just has monumental impact, especially with the connection that the Navajo Nation has to Washington, D.C., as one of a handful of tribes who do have an actual office in D.C. lobbying federal officials.
Polly, very quickly here, tell us what other story you're working on there on the Navajo Nation.
Yeah, so, I'm just going to be watching what President Nygren does in his first 100 days in office. It's going to be really exciting to see.
Well, Polly, thank you so much for being here and telling us about the Navajo Nation inauguration.
Thank you so much.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
The Sand Creek Massacre, the betrayal that changed Cheyenne and Arapaho people forever, focuses on tribal accounts of Colorado's deadliest day. Exhibition details at historycoloradocenter.org.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.